Well, let's get started. Probably more people is going to be joining soon. So hello, welcome. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning. I think there's people from all over the world. So welcome to this webinar. We are really excited today to bring you an awesome speaker. We are running a series of webinars on the topic of product discovery. And today we're going to be looking at product discovery from the lens of a product manager. First of all, let me start with a brief round of introductions. My name is Gerard Chiva. I am the managing director and co-founder of Active Solutions, a management consulting firm from Barcelona. And today we have with us Federico Casabianca. Federico began his career as software engineer. He discovered the agile world by accident and started infusing the agile way of doing things as a Scrum Master and afterwards as a product owner. He also tasted a bit of the consultant world just to realize afterwards that he had to unlearn so many things to become a great consultant, which led him to his current position, which is a person who does product while taking care of the customer. He will be providing a lot of useful tips and practical advice for product managers and product owners who want to get started or improve their product discovery practice. Active Solutions, we help digital businesses lead their market with our innovation, digital product, and lean organization programs. For those who don't know our company, we started operating on September 2018. And since the very beginning, we have been providing free, high-quality content online, like ebooks, hundreds of blog posts, video trainings, video interviews, and webinars like this one. We didn't start doing webinars 2 months ago, like many others. So we have been doing this for a while. And we are also about to launch our new book, our third book, which is, in this case, about product discovery. For those of you who are new or to product discovery, or it's the first time that you hear about product discovery, I will define it as the continuous process of learning and validating what to build. It is essentially characterized by discovering what the market is, what problems customers have, coming up with ideas for solutions, and quickly validating them with rapid prototyping. But product discovery is not something that you do once in a while. It is a continuous process. It is a mindset. And in this webinar series that we're running, this is the second one today with Federico. We did one last week, and we're going to do 2 more in the upcoming weeks with the goal of providing a holistic overview of product discovery, which we believe is a cornerstone of modern product teams, as well as a huge competitive advantage. So the webinar today is continuous product discovery. And as you can see there, because life is too short to build something nobody wants, there is going to be time for Q&A at the end. So please, if you have any questions, you can just drop them in the chat and I will be running through them at the end. So I will stop speaking and I hand it over to Federico. All yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Gerard. I'm going to try to share my screen. Don't freak out, but just let me know if you are able to see something.
Yes, it's okay. I can see.
Good, fantastic. So, first and foremost, thank you, Gerard, for inviting me, for giving me the opportunity to come, speak one of the topics that I really like the most, along with the strategy and decision making. So, I have to say that this is a little bit weird for me being in a webinar, because I'm on the other side of the screen. I'm normally facilitating webinars, so I'm not a regular speaker in most of the webinars that I participate in. That I have to, but it's also a pleasure for me to try to come and try to give some inspiration, I would say, some kind of tips on how you can do continuous product discovery. So a little bit about myself, although Gerard just mentioned a couple of things. I started as an engineer, have a background, as I said, started to flirting with agile methodologies in 2010, I would say, starting with GDD, more like extreme programming. Had the chance to become a Scrum Master afterwards. But as Scrum Master, I saw that we were like the perfect feature factory, but there was some kind of missing point there. So at that moment, I realized I would need to spend some time with the people who normally handle the requirements to us. So from that, I started to interest in a bit more on the product ownership thing at the moment when we're doing Scrum. And then after that, since, normally as a consultant, you are supposed to earn more money, I decided to become a consultant, helping people to adopt agile things, agile mindset, agile practices. And then more focusing on the product side as well, because I saw the same pattern that I used to see before. And then, as Gerard said, I believe, but now I'm certain that they had a lot of things that I had to unlearn. So I decided to go back to the trenches as a product manager. And now I'm part of the Nexting family, where we're basically delighting employees at work. And we are focusing basically on digital employee experience. So if you want also check it out, we are hiring. So that's basically a little bit about myself. So a little bit disclaimer that I want to say, the things that I'm going to tell you today is not the only truth that is out there. It's my truth. It's a partial truth that I can tell you based on my experience, the people I follow, and I've been, training with them. And of course, based on my context. The good thing is that all the principles and the tactics, especially the principles, can apply to, I would say that it can apply to most of the contexts that you might be in your company. Maybe the tactics, you need to change it a little bit, but I think that there are a couple of things that you will be able to start doing from tomorrow. So before further ado, every single time that I start to talk about discovery, I always mention this quote from Mark Andreessen. Mark Andreessen is like a veteran from a venture capitalist firm that he runs with Andrew Horowitz. He was the founder of Netscape. He wrote an incredible piece like 10 years or 11 years ago, which is Software is Eating the World, which I strongly recommend you to read. But the good thing about this, this phrase or this sentence is that, the most important thing is to know what you can know, which that is normally the key, what people don't focus on. So, and to illustrate that, I always like to refer to these 2x2 matrix. I mean, this is not new, of course. I took it from the book Escaping the Build Trap from Melissa Perry, which is another book that I strongly tell you to read because it's fantastic. It's very short and it's very well written and it has a lot of useful information. But in these kind of things, if you look, for example, at the discipline of product management, there's normally, these kind of things that normally we call uncertainties. And it's very important when you start or you're kicking off a project to see, for example, what separate the things that you know and the things that you need to learn. So in this matrix, basically depicting the things of the state of the art depending on your knowledge. But if you see, for example, on the column of the unknown, there is two kind of unknowns. Normally, the things that you know that you don't know, which are normally experiments or assumptions that you might have, and you can go and validate them and check them. And then the other things that you don't even know you don't know. So those are the things that normally happens when you're doing, for example, research or discovery, in this case. And there's those aha moments when you're saying, wow, this is something that I have even considered, I have taken into account. And that could be, for example, a new thing that I can start exploring. So if we reduce or we concentrate or summarize the activity of product management, I would say that product management is recognizing and investigating what we know that we need to know, to understand, or to learn. And the other thing is reducing the world of the universe around these kind of things that we don't even know that we don't know. So hopefully at this point is a little bit clear where discovery starts to fit into the picture. But there is no way that I'm talking about discovery if I'm not bringing Mary Kagan into the equation. So again, for those who haven't read Inspire, please buy the book after this webinar because that is like the Bible, I would say, for the modern product management. So The good thing I like about this book, about Marty's book, is like he also point out where the things, or where are the questions that you normally should answer when you are running product discovery. So normally there are these kind of questions that you need to address. So if you're running product discovery, your main objective should be answer these kind of questions. So if the customer is going to buy my product, even if it's a new product, or for example, it's a product that is competing with another product, then that the customers can use it, that that we are able to build it, from the technical standpoint, and then that is also viable for our stakeholders, which is something that we normally, some people dismiss. But if we create a product that is usable, is desirable, people are willing to pay for that, it's feasible, but it's ruining our company because producers cost us like insanely amount of money, that is also something that is not going to scale. So normally you will be able to, when you're running discovery, you will be able to target these 4 questions. You will be able to give answer to these 4 questions. As Gerard said before, the way that you're going to answer the question is with, gathering evidence. What we like to say, validated learning. For those who are familiar with Lean Startup, this is some of the things that we are doing here. We're trying to understand whether the problem that we wanted to solve, the solution that we want to implement, is the right one. And as Gerard said, it's basically that. It's continuous, something that you're doing, again and again and again. So also, and this is very important because there is a lot of misunderstandings, normally the things that we're doing in discovery informs the thing that we're doing in delivery. So if we know, for example, that there is kind of problem that we're trying to solve, we think a couple of solutions that might be suitable to address that problem. And then we say, all right, we're going to test this one. We go with this one. We're going to see how we go through that process. But if we go with this one, we validate it, then that would be the thing that would inform the product that we're going to build in delivery. So ideally, this is something that we will need to do, as I said, again and again, but it's something that we are doing to try to address those 4 questions. So try to keep in mind those questions because they're going to be very useful after in the conversation. So another thing that I would like to say is this quote also from Ed Catmull, wrote the book Creativity. So again, another book that you need to read, but this is something that people don't understand when they are doing discovery, but they think they're doing discovery. So by definition, it means that when you're doing discovery, you don't know the answer when you start. Sometimes we like to have this tendency or bias that we know everything, or we are doing, like my dear colleague John Catter says, which is exact theater, but we are not doing at the end of the day, we are not doing discovery. The only thing that we're doing is doing a delivery phase with, which is enmascarated or hidden, under things that we normally call discovery. So those are the things basically that I would like to introduce when I say discovery. So the things that we need to understand, what are the things that we need to learn, some questions that we need to ask. We need to gather that evidence that are going to help us to inform the things that then ultimately the team is going to build. And of course, keep in mind that when we start with this, there might things that we don't even know that we don't know, and we are going to discover also. So this is the part where things is starting to get a little bit trickier. I'm pretty sure that you have seen the distinction between discovery and delivery. There's a lot of controversy, I would say, on those terms. You might also read about dual track, agile, this kind of stuff, but I'm trying to be very precise in terms of the definition or the difference between discovery and delivery. So in discovery, and I think also Gerard mentioned this, it's a part when we are trying to, again, gather evidence through experiments. Normally they're prototypes that enable us to discover the solutions to some kind of problems that the team is tasked to solve. So we got a problem that we need to solve. We try to find the right solution. We might have tons of solutions, and the idea is to, as we said, try to find an answer for the 4 questions that we mentioned before. That is basically discovery. There's not secret on that. There's no secret on that. Then what we do is, once we know that we have this kind of validated learning and we understand what are the things that we are trying to make sure that we answer those 4 questions, we kind of start to say we are the confidence, or you can take the decision to build that as a real product. Because what the things that we have in discovery, they are not a product at all. So one thing that people normally ask is, hey, what is the difference between the minimum viable product? I try to not use the minimum viable product anymore, because every single time that you talk about minimum viable product, it's like, people confuse these kind of things. So, and I think that Eric Ries, did a fantastic job outlining everything about linear startup. But when he put the name of minimum viable product to an experiment of the next test that you want to try, I think that the only thing that he did was creating more confusion about that. So, having said that, I mean, in deliveries, when we are building shippable products that provide all the things that we need to make sure that our product is there, that performs correctly, that is reliable, that address all the security things that we want to do, and of course that we are able to support, with confidence, and the team is able to maintain as well. So the problem about these kind of things is that we think that this discovery and delivery, there are two things that are completely separated from one another, two different phases. You guys are doing discovery, the other people are doing delivery. There's no connection at all. And it seems to be like the typical waterfall, right? So there's a couple of distinctions just to try to make sure that we're talking about different things. Normally in discovery, you say fake it until you make it. So delivery would be the making stuff. There, it might take different names, tons of them. So it doesn't matter how you call it, but you understand the difference specifically between those two things, those two steps, I would say. So you might have seen also this chart of this graph. This is one of the charts that when you are doing the workshop with Mark Kagan, he always tries to explain for that. And I said this is a very nice thing. As you can see, again, discovery, we're doing prototypes. In delivery, we are just based on that evidence, we're creating the product. We're trying to find product market fit in order to achieve product vision, whatever. The important thing is that when you look at this, you can see, for example, that it seems like you are, the way that it's depicted, it seems that you're still doing like different waterfall, different phases, right? So I do a prototype, I pass it along to the team builds the thing. I do another prototype, and then I pass it again to the team to build it. And I think that this picture can be a little bit confusing. So I'll try to add a little bit of simplicity and also try to enlarge a little bit the picture. So normally what happens is you start with a product vision. That product vision is translated into strategy in any sort of a strategy that you wanna imagine. And then that strategy normally is basically concrete, creating different kind of objectives that you want to achieve. And then, of course, you can have discovery and delivery. Some of the objectives will require, because there are problems that you don't even know how to solve it. So you want to do some kind of discovery to try to see that there are things that, what is the thing that we need to also build? What is the solution? But there will be also some objectives that, fall only into the delivery phase. If we need to, for example, to add some particular thing that is compliance with whatever legal article or whatever thing that is there, you need to do it. You are not going to need to do some kind of discovery, in that particular scenario. So that is the thing that we're doing, for example, separating discovery from delivery, but because of the nature of the work is different, right? So in that particular case, we might have also discovery that then translates into delivery. And as you can see, one of the words that I would like you to keep in mind is that we are going to see different opportunities where we can intervene when we are doing this, discovery. We might build different prototypes. There's a lot of the space that we have in between discovery and delivery is because we're trying to find a solution for a problem, or when we are, for example, exploring some particular problem for different solutions, we might discover that there's another need or desire on that thing, and we are also wanted to bring it up so we are able to make better decisions, or maybe because that problem is even more important to solve than the previous one. So in this phase, we're going to have a lot of prototyping, finding the opportunity things, desire and needs. And then on delivery, again, once we know and we have the evidence and we inform this phase, we are going to build the stuff. Build the stuff means creating more, as you're saying, something more scalable, maintainable, reliable. Of course, more secure, etc., etc. So as you can see, the difference basically is I always try to use the same metaphor when I was explaining this to the developers on my team. I always try to use the metaphor that it's the same thing that when you're trying to apply, for example, leading a startup to a startup or into a great company. Basically, the underneath, the goal for these two entities are completely different. On the startup, you're trying to look for a scalable and repeatable business model. And on the other side, for example, for a great company, what you're trying to do is to normally try to optimize, reduce costs, making everything more efficient, along with maybe, of course, find innovation. But the goals of these two phases are different, even though they are pretty, I would say, intertwined, right? So there's some risk, of course, in these kind of things, which are these four. In a nutshell, normally when you're starting to do discovery and delivery, which sometimes happens, we're starting to build everything rather than doing, very quick iterations, trying to prototype, validate the solution. So that's not what we're going to do, and this is called risk at the end. If we are not addressing those four questions that I said at the beginning, valuable, feasible, usability, and business viability, we're doing exactly the same that we used to do what we're doing waterfall. So normally, this is one of the things that normally happens. Another thing that happened is that we are translating that as a waterfall-ish approach again, which is we have some sort of product manager or product owner that they're running there, trying to talk to the stakeholders, create some kind of requirements, pass that along to the user designer or user experience person, create a perfect mockups, whatever, and then they pass that to the development team, maybe in some sort of sprint planning or whatever, and they're trying to estimate and come up with a technical solution right there, which is not also what we want to do. That's not what we want to. Other thing is focus on output. I'm not discovering anything new here, but if your team is focused on not accountable on the business results and they're accountable to try to build stuff, of course, this is not going to work either. And the last but not least is what we call the big tell, which is if you look, for example, at your quarter specifically, and then you see, for example, how many things you have defined and how many things you have actually delivered. If those things are basically zero, there should be some kind of problem in there. So in discovery, what you want to do is to try to prototype as many things as possible, so you have a lot of options. We're trying to validate and give answers to the questions that we mentioned before. And of course, there has to be the kind of relationship. There is no particular thing to say, hey, I have to do like 150 prototypes to try to get one particular product. But the idea is that you need to try, much more things in discovery than in delivery. I remember that I asked Mari Kagans when I did the workshop with him and saying, hey, Mari, what is the thing that you need to, do very well when you are in discovery? And he said, try to get better at building prototypes, but not only one, hundreds of prototypes. I think that in one of the workshops, he mentioned, some sort of relationship between, the best product teams, how many prototypes they are doing a week. But again, this is not something that we need to, be very attached. It's basically trying more things than the one that you built. It's a very good rule of thumb, I would say. So in my opinion, I would say that discovery is a function of different variables. I would say humility, collaboration, and clarity. I mean, we can change different ones. But on the principles that I'm going to explain, all the principles are reflecting one of these variables. So hopefully I'll try every single time that I mention a principle to mention what is the variable that these principles are referring to. But yes, it's a combination of a lot of things. So if we jump right into the principles, there are 6 that I want to share with them. And the first one is this one. So we say that one of the mistakes that we normally do when we are doing discovery is that we're focusing too much on output. We are focusing too much on building the thing, releasing the thing. But I would say that being outcome focused is very useful when we're trying to give a north star to the team. So imagine that you have a problem that you wanted to solve, and you believe that you need to solve because it's part of the strategy or whatever. It's not that you get to the office, the next Monday of the next week, and you start to say, all right, now what is the problem that we wanted to solve, and we're going, because we are doing discovery and we wanted to iterate different solutions. At some point, what you need to do is to have a North Star. You need to have some sort of anchor, I would say, where you need to understand why you are targeting that specific problem. Because what normally happens is this kind of thing. You have tons of problems that you might solve for one specific thing. But the problem is that what you want to do is try to channel all the energy and the focus on the team in the problem that matters. And the way that you can say that the problem matters or not is when you have a clear outcome. Specifically, I would say a customer outcome, but this came to be a little bit sometimes misunderstood also in terms of what is an outcome. It's very, very tricky, but let me put it this way. So what you want to do is to try to make sure that you're resolving a problem for the customer, but also it's useful for the business. So normally these two things are connected. This is saying the customer outcome will also drive business outcome, and we want to do both. Of course, that ideally is easy for the team to try to focus on the customer outcome, because there are things that might be impactful on the product, and also because the business outcome is very difficult to try to impact those kind of things. So if you, for example, say that a business outcome could be that X percentage of the monthly recurring revenues is driven by additional products, you might have, for example, a customer outcome, which could be, I want to increase in some percentage the adoption of any particular feature that you might have. So then what you're doing is to try to find different problems where that problem could be resolved. The problem of increasing X% the adoption of some particular feature. And then you can have a myriad of different problems that you might solve. Or you can find, for example, how customers are using your product. But look at how important it is to try to have something specific that's going to lead you, and you can follow or you can refer to, rather than resolving problems because of the sake of resolving problems. So hopefully it's clear that all the problems that we're solving should be aligned some particular I would say outcome that we want to think, and that outcome that is normally something that we are solving for the customer is also related to something that is going to impact some kind of business metric, right? So there are different, I would say that the different techniques, but the important thing that I would say that is also important to try to have an outcome when you're doing discovery is because what we don't want to do is, I would say before, is this kind of thing. So we don't want to tell the team every single thing that they have to do because that is not managing by outcomes. That is managing by outputs. And then what normally happens when this is the thing, we are not focusing on the specific problems. We are not trying to validate solutions. The only thing that we are doing is to build features. There are a lot of problems associated with this kind of stuff or these kind of behaviors. This is the first one. Marty Kagan used the word that thing originated from John Doerr, which is missionaries versus mercenaries. I think that in our culture it's a little bit harsh to say that, although it might be true. But I mean, this is what happened, right? So you don't trust your engineers. Your engineers are completely, like machines that they're building what you're doing. The first thing that you try to do is to try to micromanage them because you don't trust them. So you're putting a lot of control. You're exerting a lot of pressure over them to try to finish the thing. And then, as Jeff Gottles normally say, this success is becoming binary. You are the best team if you deliver something. You are the worst team if you haven't delivered. So that is something that you're not giving a lot of space to the team to try to test different things and see how they can achieve success. And then the other one is, what happened next? How do we measure success? So we deliver the thing, we put the feature into production, but what next? How do we know, for example, if the customer is getting better with the product or with the feature that we deliver? How do we know if we are delivering a worse experience that we used to do before? I mean, it's very difficult to try to understand those kind of things. So normally this is the thing what happens when you're managing by outputs, right? And this is something that we are please try to not to do it if you're a product manager or you're in some sort of direction on your company. So ideally, when we are presenting, for example, an outcome that the team has to achieve, we are trying to give them the space to experiment and to try to find the right solution for that. And I'm just gonna say in a couple of seconds how you can do, or what are the things that you can do to try to manage more by outcomes than by outputs. But the idea here is we are giving the team the autonomy and the accountability. We are not saying that we are not, holding them accountable for that, but it's a completely different thing. I mean, it's like a water and oil. They're two different things. So ideally, when we are doing discovery, we're trying to managing by outcomes, trying to give the team a customer outcome that they're going to achieve. And then that ideally, if you're a good product manager, you should also try to explain how that customer outcome that they're trying, they're going to chasing is going to impact on the business as well. So this is an example. As you see, it's handwriting. It's one of the things that I did with one of my customers when I was consulting on a bank. So here it was the team of a bank, and they had no idea, in my opinion, why they were doing there. So what I try to do in this kind of basic or simple stuff, I try to go into the basics. So you see the purpose on the top left of the page. I try to make, understand why the team should exist within that customer, within that bank. And then after that, we're trying to do a lot of work to try to understand where are the business problems that they're trying to solve, how the business problem come to, how to, translate into a specific outcome, and how that outcome has some sort of specific metrics that the team will be able to test, or to see, for example, whether they have achieved success or not. But see, for example, how this thing differs than, for example, going and saying, guys, implement this kind of, these kind of things. See you in the next quarter. So basically, there's a lot of benefits of doing these kind of things. You are giving the team the context that they need to understand why this is important. In this case, it was also important to understand where they fit within the whole organization and how they contribute. And then where are the things that, their priorities. In that part of things, there were a lot of business problems, but we just focused one that was translating into the strategy. So the strategy was basically telling us what are the business problems that we're going to target. And then based on that, we were able to extract what are the outcomes, how we're going to measure the business impact, and then how we're going to measure the customer outcome of the things that we're going to achieve. So this is a very, very stupid example, but always when you start to do discovery, always try to focus on what are the outcomes that you wanted to achieve. There are a couple of resources on how can you do that, how you can be more outcome, I would say, driven, that output driven, and how you can define those outcomes. There are three basic resources. They're all available. The Northern Playbook is a fantastic book. And then the other was, they're available, but Radical Focus is about OKRs. So your output can be, for example, also one of your key results that you wanted to drive. So there are a lot of options where you can use to try to define your outcome. So moving forward, once we have the outcome, we have defined what is the outcome that we wanted to achieve. Then we wanted to start to understand a little bit more about what are the customer problems. So the principle number 2 is empathy for your audience. And this is where we're going to discover what are the main problems, desires, and different things that the user experience. So once you have the outcome, the first question that you need to ask yourself is this one: what are the constituents that are going to be impacted by the solution that you're building? And once you identify them, which is very important, you need to understand them in different ways. Normally what you do is to do customer interviews in many different ways. I'm not going to get into this, but there are a lot of different ways that you can do. You can do, for example, ethnographic research, user research. But normally what I suggest, if you, for example, are not a user experience person, just go and sit with them and try to understand or uncover these kind of things: desires, pain points, goals, needs, things that they want. Not everything could be, for example, like a pain point. So there are things that, and thank you to Sylvia, when review the deck for the webinar, she said, hey, users have also goals. So users might have also goals, that they want to become a better whatever. So that's also very important to try to, uncover those kind of things. And these normally desire, pain points, goals, needs, things that they want is what I normally call, or I place this in the opportunity space. This is taken from Teresa Torres' curriculum. So I would say that anything that falls into that 5 things could be called an opportunity. And this is a broader term, right? It's like I would say, what is an opportunity? Opportunity could be many things, but there's something that, either the user have a pain point, have the desires, goals, whatever. We want to capture them. So it's important to spend time with them to try to uncover these kind of needs. And then what you need to do is also to try to, put them or make them available. So, for example, what are the desires that the customer have? And you also, based on the outcome that you already know what you're targeting, for example, what those desires or pain points match to those particular outcomes. So this is an example for one of my one of the stakeholders that I'm in my company. I normally talk to people from sales, customer, success managers. So this is a very stupid representation of how you can do it. There are many, many more. Like these ones, for example, you can do it through a customer journey map. You can do, for example, like the Delta 2x2 by Jeff Patton, which is the one that I have the pink color with the Post-it. You can do interview snapshots. You can do product personas. You can do empathy map. You can do you can use any one of them. It doesn't matter which one you use. It is important that you reflect what are the opportunity space for your specific customer. And you have very clear representation of your customer. So if we summarize again, we have a clear outcome that we want to achieve. We have the person that we will need to talk to, get information using any of the techniques that are here, especially interviews. And then the third one, which might be the most controversial one, and it's going to touch some nerve, which is try to prioritize those opportunities, not solutions. And hopefully with this third principle, you're starting to see, for example, where we're going with this. So in the previous step, talking to customer, we discover the opportunities. And then the thing that we want to do is to prioritize those opportunities and no solutions. There's a beautiful quote from the last Mind the Product conference from Teresa Torres, which I love, by the way, and I'm trying to reinforce this message to my team every single day. Everything that we have in our backlog is not gonna make us more success. None of the features that we have there. So, and the reason is not because I'm not believe what we have in the solutions that we're putting out there, but what I'm trying to say is that this kind of mindset of always keep exploring, because the feature itself is not going to help us. What is going to help us to reach success is to try to understand what our customer wants. So I would like to make an exercise very quickly, and just to try to think, for example, in any backlog that you might have, or anything that you are, whatever, how you're managing your daily tasks, try to think, for example, how many of those things that you have in your backlog are solutions, are specific features, and how many of them are describing, for example, some particular goal that the user wants to achieve, some particular pain, any desire that you might have heard, for example, in any interview. But try to make the relationship between those, the relationship, how many problems or desires, things you have in your opportunity space, and how many you have in the solutions. And they're gonna give you a pretty clear idea whether you're focusing a little bit more on solutions than on opportunities. So, there are a lot of examples that I could give to that. Also, the one that I cringe every time I see this one. Some particular stakeholder come to you and say, "Hey guys, this is the thing that we need to do. We need to build this kind of stuff." And then either the product manager or the product owner, the moment take that and put, as a stakeholder, I want to solve that. That is not that specific thing doesn't shouldn't deserve to be called like a user story, because that is basically a requirement. So it's another way to say shut up and do what I'm doing. But please, if that happens to you, don't call that user story, because that is not a user story. So just to try to reinforce this particular point, again, we are going to have two different sides of the story, the left side and the right side. So this particular principle is basically telling us that we should spend much more time on the left hand side than on the right hand side, and not because again the solutions are less important than the other ones, but the solutions that we build are going to be the result of the problems, of the desires that we're able to uncover during our customer interviews, the interactions that we have with our customer. So honestly, again, I don't have a ratio to try to say, hey, we should have 30 problems and then for each problem 2 or 3 solutions. I don't have that. But the problem is that if we focus a lot of things, a lot of resources, and a lot of energy on the solution space, the first thing that are going to happen, and this happened to me, and always I normally sometimes fall into the trap. If you only have solutions, you have more solutions than problems. The conversation with your boss is going to be, I would say, much more focused on him or her telling you, no, that's not what I want to do. You do another thing. So it's going to be like a conversation, and it's fair, right? Because that person probably has more hierarchy in the organization, so probably he or she is going to win. So try to focus on the other stuff, more on the problem and the pains, and the conversation. I promise that you're going to be much more different, because that is one of the things that you can going to start to express different point of view rather than saying, I want this solution, I want the other solution. So how do we do that? So different things. When you have your outcome, that could be, for example, the blue is on the top. Then you start to discovering different opportunities, goals. You start to explore that space with the customer. An important thing to try to prioritize, and it's a typical thing, what is the criteria? Normally the criteria is a different one. Your strategy could be 1 point, your mission, your vision, the customers that you're targeting right now, how many of those customers are being impacted and how often. But the way that you're going to address that opportunity, or the things that you're going to prioritize to try to tackle first, try to solve first, it normally has to be, like Teresa Torres says, like two-way door decision. So if we decide to go, for example, with the first opportunity that we have on this particular picture on the left, try to make sure that that there is something that you can always come back and say, if that's not going to work, I'm able to go back and try, for example, other opportunity. Because if we are, as we say, two-way door or one-way door, if we try, for example, opportunities like one-way door is the only thing that we are able to do, we are committed, until the end. And it's very difficult then to come back and try other things, because you are so much involved and you have spent, a lot of time. And normally the sunk cost bias, normally triggers, and you go with that opportunity until the end, and that might not be the right thing to do, right? So there's a great article on Teresa's blog about these kind of things, and also Jeff Bezos on Amazon is using it. So Jeff Bezos is using it. It might be good at some point. So try to make sure that the opportunity that you choose is also a thing that you're able to test very quickly. I mean, if it doesn't work, go back, go another opportunity, create another solution, and try it very quickly. So again, this is another example of one of the articles that I normally write on LinkedIn. The only thing that I want to mention about this was the first iteration with one of the teams that we were doing. As you will see, same structure that we were discussing before: outcomes, indicators to try to make things more quantifiable in terms of that, and then the things that we have, the use case, the opportunity in red. There are the things that after we talk with the different users, we are able to identify those opportunities and then find solutions and experiment. But again, they came with a solution. Hey, we want to buy this tool because it's going to help us to build that. So we did the other way around. Say, don't come with a solution. We try to define the outcome first. Try to find where the different customer outcome, which in this case are called proxy goals, and then try to measure that. Find a metric. Try to give us a target to try to achieve, and then what are the opportunities that we want to target. And in this case, of course, this is the first iteration. When we did the second and the third, we were having like triple the number of opportunities there. But the ones that we have chosen was, for example, the one that we were able to target quickly, and that was the one that we have. As soon as we saw that if they didn't work, we were able to go back and choose another one that might be more aligned, in this case, with the strategy which at that moment was to try to increase sales, right? So tools for this, there are a lot of tools. Link Canvas from Ash Maurya. You can use Opportunity Canvas. People have different backlogs. One, the opportunity backlog, other ones have solution backlog, whatever works for you. And then the one that I'm always trying to advocate more, which is the opportunity solution tree, is the one that I'm describing right now. More linked to the Teresa Torres way to doing discovery. So most of the things that I'm doing right now are based on her curriculum. So principle number 4, this is not going to be a surprise. Co-create solutions that meet the needs of your audience. If you see, for example, one of the problems that we see, the problems that I mentioned, having the product manager or the product person doing the things, handing that over to the designer, handing that over to the team, that's not what we want to do things. In discovery, we need to have this kind of concept of the product triad, which is product manager, person who can take care of the desirability of the usability, which is normally the UX person, and the person which is in design, who understands design, and then on the feasibility side, we normally have like a technical person, either if it's the engineering manager or the engineering lead, the tech lead, or whoever it is. And the reason for that is, like, unfortunately, we are persons, and we have a lot of biases that normally triggers. And if you see, for example, if you understand that the idea is not having only one person who represents the customer, I want to be able to have debate with other people, the same thing that the customer said from the different angles. And also because, like Chris Argyri said, that we normally see the work with our own eyes, and the things that I, as a product manager, see, for example, in one interview, might be completely different from the perspective that a designer or a technical person might have. I might be looking, for example, at how valuable it is, if that's valuable for them, if they are going to buy it, if that is also good for the stakeholders, when at the same time the technical leader could start, thinking about how difficult it would be to implement, how technically we can create, for example, like a prototype, when the designer may be looking at the whole experience end to end. So there are different reasons why we want to do these things together. And it's incredible when you start to pull in engineers to the different conversations with stakeholders. It's unbelievable the enormous amount of ideas that they might have, and they are in a very good position to have them. So if you have the chance, if you want to try it, just pull one of the engineers in one of the conversations with the customer, and see, for example, what are the when you're doing the debrief after the interview. See, for example, what are the ideas that this person have. It's gonna, sometimes it's surprising the amount of ideas that they might have and their opinions. So as I said, leverage all the knowledge that we have in discovery, and then of course that we wanted to, be as much aware as possible when we come to talk about different assumptions on the different perspectives that we might have as a product triad, right? So again, another example. This is more recent. In this case, there was we were interviewing a customer success manager. They were myself from the product side, we were someone from the data analyst, and then we have some engineer. And guess what? One of the solutions, the one that I put in right there, just for the sake of this space, came from the only engineer that we have. I mean, we were discussing with data analysts, and the engineer said, guys, we already have the data. We can extract a very simple CSV file. We can send it to the customer success, and that person can tell us if it works or if it doesn't work. And we were looking at him and saying, wow, yeah, makes sense. I mean, again, you would be surprised if you start pulling your engineers in this kind of session. They're incredible. I mean, for some reason they're engineers, right? So they're accustomed to solve different problems. So again, sorry if I sound like a broken record. Bring your engineers into the interviews, and you'll be surprised for that. So principle number 5: surfacing and testing assumptions. If you're a person who are accustomed to hypothesis-driven development and these kind of things, that might not be a surprise for you, but it's incredibly surprising how people normally gloss over these kind of things about assumptions. So what happened first is, like, let's suppose that the green circle is like opportunity that we have, and then the yellow ones are the different solutions. The first problem that we normally have is that we are not considering enough ideas. And just because it's simple, right? So we come to the first idea, this is the best one. normally what happens always, you might hear this phrase also, we fall in love with our ideas. So I strongly recommend you when you're considering different solutions, first of all, consider a lot of solutions, not only one, consider several. There are different techniques that you can try. And then try to, as we are uncovering different opportunities, try to, in this kind of phase when you're seeing solutions to try to solve that particular opportunity, try to make explicit all the assumptions that you have. It's incredibly useful. There are a lot of things that can go, for example, undercover something that you might not believe that is important, but try to make it explicit. In the example on the right, where it might not be very well put it there. So in the assumption space, just try to make, for example, every single assumption. What is the thing that you assume that is going to happen to be true, and then try to make some kind of experiment with that to try to validate the assumption. An assumption can destroy your idea pretty quickly. So if you validate it and it proves wrong, you can move, for example, with other assumption or with other idea very quickly. So try to make that before you commit, so deep. So try to make them explicit at some point. So confirmation bias is another reason why we wanna put all the assumptions on the surface, and that is another thing that is very important thing when you're doing these kind of things. If you're doing, for example, that with other persons, designers or engineers at the same time, of course the abilities are gonna be different. So it's good that you have, again, different perspectives to try to validate them. And the more that you uncover, the better, because you are always de-risking your solution. And of course, this might sound very stupid, but make sure that when you are creating solutions, you are creating solutions for the opportunity that you're targeting. This might sound very obvious, but if, for example, if I say that the opportunity is one specific thing that the customers, I don't know, that in that case, for example, it was for some particular product on the top left. The person doesn't like commercials. Try to make solutions that address that specific opportunity, because maybe then you are thinking that there is another thing that could be solved, could be another solution that could be good, but it's not addressing that particular opportunity. And it might be, if you start testing that, discovering assumption, then you realize that it's not targeting what you're expecting, and then again, it's not funny, wasting your time. So there are a lot of tools as well here. Assumption map from David Bland. The one below that is the one from Laura Klein in the book UX for Startups. I started to try to test the one that is assumption tested with validated, the one that is on the top on the right. And then you can do any kind of pre-mortem, pre-parade, whatever exercise that might help you to think before you start implementing how you get to the solution. Right? Last but not least, externalize your thinking. Very important. The idea to try to put all the things that we have seen, put the outcome, put the different opportunities, map that space, trying to find different solutions. What are the assumptions? Everything, put it there. Creates your understanding. That is not a surprise, though, because we want to be very visual in these states. The conversations that you're going to have with your stakeholders at the same time is going to be very, very different, because again, you're not going to focus a lot on solutions, but on more on the opportunities. And again, the conversation is different because there's maybe a space that you don't even know. So the questions that they're going to say, hey, how we can understand that? How did you discover that the person was, I don't know, have that particular pain? So the conversation is very different, and it's not putting the stakeholder in a position to say, I want that solution implemented. Right? So, it's going to be better. The conversations that you're going to have are going to be much better conversations. So always maintain the state of inquiring your thinking of, thinking of your team. That is good also to try to surface different kind of assumptions. Always maintain this state of doubt. Don't go always with the same solution that you come up with. Try to create different solutions, because normally that's not the good one, and that's not how innovation is created. So the most innovative solution for that problem that you're solving might be always come up, the second, the third, the fourth time that you are visiting or asking how could be a great solution for that. Then, as I said, can have very conversations not only with your stakeholders, but if you show them up, it's very clear what are the problems, and people can give you feedback about it, or maybe tell you things that you don't even know, because they're expert, for example, in one particular domain or particular problem or solution that you're targeting. So always try to make this visible. And of course, as I said, having very conversations. That is also is very clear when you have the conversation, how you can address different problems and different solutions. So just to try to summarize, I just want a little bit of time, so we're gonna get people time for questions. So always there is no right way to do product discovery. Again, I'm more biased, I would say, towards the Teresa Torres way. Is the approach that worked for me. It might not work for you. You can use, for example, Melissa Perry's Toyota Kata way to do discovery. I know that guys from N26 in Barcelona, they're using that one. I haven't tried, so I cannot say. Try to have a clear definition of the outcome that you want to achieve. Spend a lot of time or more time in the opportunity space than the solution space. Involve your stakeholders in the process. You will be surprised also how your stakeholders are able to contribute when they try to spend more time on the opportunity space. Externalize your thinking and try to work collaboratively. Don't work in a vacuum. Try to work with other people who have different perspectives. And if you have to look for another person, just again, pull an engineer. Don't try to bring another product person, because they're going to see the problem from the same perspective. So with that said, there are a lot of useful resources. They are here. If you want to take a picture, I want to share the slides then with all of you, so you're able to have them. I just want to ask you a very quick favor. I copied this from Gibson Beadle, a former VP of product of Netflix. So if you can go to this, pull your cell phone and try to open this QR. It's a very short feedback that will be very useful for me, because it will help me to craft the message a little bit different, or talk about something that could be more relevant for you the next time. So with that said, I think that 1 minute left. I try to did it very quickly. Gerard, all yours.
Yeah, well, there's one quick question, which is about what was principle number 6. I think it was summarize your thinking.
Yes, externalize your thinking. Yeah.
Externalize. Okay.
Yeah,
externalize. I was taking notes also, but some people were asking. So if anybody has any more questions, it's your time to write the questions in the chat. We are over 1 hour already, but we can stay for a while if you have any questions.
Yeah, try to speed up a little bit. By the way, Gerard, I don't know if I can send you the presentation and you can share that with the attendees, if that's possible, or
well, today or tomorrow, everybody who registered will receive the link to the replay.
Awesome.
I can, if you pass me the slides, I can add them to the
sure.
To the email. Okay, so you just pass me the PDF and I will join or the link to Dropbox or wherever you store it, and I will add it to the email. Okay.
I think there's a question from.
Yeah, there's a question.
Do you think there should be a product designer on each product team that put the focus on discovery, or do you think the product manager can? That's a very good question. So if you can afford to have a designer, by all means, please have it. If it's not, what I suggest is at least trying to start together when you're defining the outcome. Make that designer participate on all the interviews, and of course you can have it in the delivery phase. That's fine, but at least start together. I mean, that is very important, because that is going to give also the person who is participating from the engineering side a very good idea of what is the experience. But it's not a very weird case. Normally, or unfortunately, design is like a part-time resource that several teams are sharing, which is not a pretty good thing. But
there's another question. Okay, I can ask if you want, and you have that thing.
Yeah, sure.
In your experience, is it possible to do good discovery if the business objectives are generic?
Wow, generic sounds too vague, but I would say if you don't have, I mean, that's because I put, for example, the OKR stuff and this kind of thing. So normally what you have is try to have a very qualitative thing and then something measurable. And I put when you are saying managing by outcomes that it has to be quantitative. That's because in the example when I was describing the customer outcome and the business outcome, I say, hey, for the customer outcome, we wanna increase I don't know 30% the use of this particular feature. We want to, for example, if we are Facebook or we be Netflix, we want to increase the number of minutes that the people are watching series. It has to be quantitative. If it's not quantitative, I mean, you don't even know what to shoot for. But I would say if it's generic, it's gonna be difficult. I mean, you're gonna spend time, and at some point you're gonna say, "What are we sure that this thing is targeting what we're expecting?" If it's generic, it's very difficult. You're gonna know that. You're gonna validate that.
Yeah, I think you need to do a little bit of discovery of what the actual business goal is, because sometimes not even business owners know what the business goal is. So, what will
Exactly.
you see that? What would you see? What would be different if we achieve the goal? How would you measure it? And so on and so on and so on.
Yeah, let me try to add something on that. Normally, I mean, there is two cases. The first case is when the strategy is very clear. I mean, in not all the companies that happens. So if the strategy is clear, you can go, for example, I mean, in my case, for example, and for the next quarter, I'm negotiating, I'm negotiating, right? Because I'm not trying to, to have my boss and tell me this, and this. So I'm trying to negotiate what are those kind of outcomes that we want to achieve, based, of course, on the evidence. So I spend time with my engineer. I don't have a designer in my team, which is a shame, but we try to do this kind of learning, and we try to say, hey, we found this problem for the customer success. We found this one. Is that aligned with our strategy? Yes or no? If that is aligned with our strategy, as I said, it impacts a lot of it impacts a certain number of customers. The customer that we are putting more focus on, just try to make it work. I mean, but again, try to make that negotiation, because if those things are imposed to you, I would highly doubt it that is a specific outcome. That is some kind of outcome that is hidden, underneath some kind of output, which is do this or do that or implement this particular thing. So I normally try to negotiate the outcome with in my case, with my boss, and again, align with the strategy, vision, and also the moment. I mean,
cool. Norris is asking, in the principle 6, the 0.5 is.
Good question. One sec.
Well, Norris, you will get the slides and as well as the link to the replay. So, I mean, but
okay.
if you can share it quickly,
yes. It's basically to try to have better, allow us to have better conversations. I know it's a little bit, it's not getting into the details, but the point of that is the fact that you're showing your work. There's nothing that bothers me that when something said, you know what, we're going to implement this kind of thing because we spoke with 2 or 3 customers and they told us, say, what? I mean, these kind of tools, this kind of structure that we are following, putting the outcome, the different opportunities and the solution, help us to understand what is the path that we have been going through. And they're going to give me the context to see, for example, okay, if the outcome is that one, I know that we are prioritizing that particular thing. There are a lot of opportunities. We went for that particular opportunity. And I can ask, hey, why we decided to go with that one? And then see all the solutions. So it's a very clear representation of what happened during the discovery phase. Because otherwise, and this is one of the things that I'm trying to infuse in my company right now, I know that you have spoken to 3 customers, but what are the things? What are, for example, the insights that you have gathered? What are the opportunities that you discovered? Put all the people on the same level. Otherwise there's some of them who, people who did discovery, they know what happens, but the rest, we are clueless, right?
Cool. And there's another last one by Luca, who joined late. Do you recommend any framework for idea prioritization? It's a $1 million question. Always prioritization.
Man. I mean, all right. Let's try to split the question in two. First one, if you want to do prioritization in product discovery, try to do it, as I said, with the two-way door decision. So normally what you're going to have, again, you're going to have a vision. Hopefully, you're going to have a strategy. Hopefully. So depending on all the opportunities that you have have to, you have to have clear what is your strategy. What are the things that your company focuses? So in my case, for example, in the example that I put, we when I was helping this team to build this tree, they clearly they wanted to increase sales, because the CEO of the bank say we wanted to increase sales. Boom, end of the story. So all the opportunities that we were targeting were chosen purposefully to that particular thing. Try to increase sales. So if I have, for example, opportunity, which is I can every time the person calls, because we were targeting some kind of call certain application, I try to cross sell or upsell. I'm going to try to prioritize the opportunities that are targeting those particular things rather than creating contacts or any other thing. I mean, there is not any secret sauce for that, but it has to be aligned with strategy, customers, and then, for example, you could say, all right, out of that, trying to cross-sell or upsell, what are the products specifically I want to put the focus? If I have, for example, I'm a bank and I have 100 million users who have some insurance. Okay, if the customer called me to try to renew the insurance, I'm going to try to sell them something related to that, because I'm going to have more percentage of the customer of the pie focus on that particular thing rather than, I don't know, maybe accounts or any other product that we may have. But it's a combination, right? And then on the delivery side, there is a ton of frameworks. Kano model. You have, for example, in Marchigal has a really nice way to prioritize also things. Eisenhower matrix. Buy a feature. That's the most scariest one, but there's a lot. I mean,
I hear I could make a recommendation. Actually, a book that I like very much when I read it some time ago. It's not about product discovery, but it's actually about product discovery, which is Hacking Growth by Sean Ellis.
Yeah.
And in there, I'm not so sure now, because it was a long time ago, if Sean Ellis coined this ICE scoring method, or it was someone from his team, but it's mentioned in the book. And I think it's a light enough as well as powerful enough method for when you are in this still ideation discovery phase, it's difficult to put a price tag or economic tag to the thing, but you need a way to have a discussion in the team, and it's in between the not too much time, and it's flexible. So maybe it's somewhere that some place that you can start looking at. I mean, it's there's always the same discussion with prioritization, right? So
I think that ICE stands for impact, confidence, and ease, if I'm not mistaken. But it's a tricky thing. For example, the thing that you mentioned, Gerard, on the book, the North Star playbook. It shouldn't be difficult to try to prioritize. It shouldn't be difficult to try to prioritize. The problem is that if we start to prioritize, it means that we have a lot of things that happens at the same time, and we need to say this one first, this one second, this one third. But there has to be some kind of rule that we can put. But again, it's a topic for a longer conversation.
Yeah, a single webinar only about prioritization.
Yeah,
there are so many. And it also depends on where you are in the life cycle of the product. What type of opportunities you are evaluating. It depends on many things. So, it's a long conversation, and still we're gonna keep answering questions until you further say it's enough.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so And Jorge is asking, is the same team doing discovery and delivery? If yes, if that's the case, how they move from one to the other?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and that is where normally the tricky part comes in, which is if you have a one team that is doing discovery and then you hand that to the other team, it's basically waterfall masqueraded. So part of the people, yes. So again, discovery is myself and one of the engineers, and then what is happening? It's like normally when we have, for example, some particular thing that we're normally is one, well, depends on the thing, right? But normally it's one engineer for sure, and maybe another, we might pull another in. But normally what's happening is we have this kind of a structure where we start in the quarters. If we have to do discovery, we start doing with a couple of engineers. Engineers understand what is the customer problem. As I said, we have like the different product personas, where the people understand what are the activities, motivations, pain goals. So they have an idea more or less. And this is all the team, right? All the team knows what are our customers that we're targeting. All the team know what is the outcome that we're trying to achieve. And then what happens is, since those two engineers are normally the ones who are doing the prototyping, so they're doing a lot of things, we have the other two people who are building stuff that we already discovered. Or maybe, as I said before, you might have some kind of delivery work that doesn't require any particular discovery thing. And one example that I would like to give is, we are using, for example, in our product, we are using third party providers. Guess what? Some of the third party providers went bankrupt. So from that moment, there is no way that you're going to start to prototyping or whatever. No, you know that you have to find another third party provider that is going to do exactly the same that one. So in that moment, we might have a couple of engineers doing that work, which might require less from my side, because I don't, honestly, to be honest, I don't like to spend my whole day writing user stories and these kind of things. So they are more technical stuff. Or they might spend at some point when we are not working specifically on something, we might addressing, for example, technical dev, or making the platform more maintainable, whatever it could be. But on the moment that we have something in discovery that we know that we have to build something more robust, that is the moment where we are doing, I don't want to say kickoff, but it's the moment that we are present to the rest of the engineers or the people who are going to participate in the building. But we normally try to mix people who participate in discovery with one who didn't. You present everything. You present all the prototypes that you have run, all the opportunities. Who is the customer? What is the outcome? What is the assumption that we for example surfacing during discovery? And that is pretty useful for the people to have a very good idea of what are the things that we went through when we were doing discovery. Although they haven't participated, but again, they have the content of the customer. They have all the prototypes that we did. They are able to do some kind of critique of the prototypes and say, oh yeah, we could have done this kind of thing to try to. And the problems are different that you're going to target in delivery. In delivery, what we want to do is to build a product that is reliable, maintainable, scalable, that performs. And that is it's an input for the team to build stuff, right? So hopefully it's clear.
Okay, talking about engineers, before we jump into the last question, next week we have a webinar about product discovery with an engineer. So we have the other part of the equation. And last question, I don't quite understand the question, is by Leo. Do you have any recommendation for a mobile app navigation rebuilding project which requires some research without falling into the design to development hangover trap? I don't understand the question, so if you understand it, or maybe we can ask Leo to provide more input.
Mobile app navigation rebuilding project which requires some research without falling into the design to development hangover trap. Maybe he's referring to the trap that we mentioned, that you have the product person doing one thing, then that person hand over to design, then they assign handovers to the. Look, Leo, there is one thing, for example, that we are still figuring out. So, for example, not everything is discovery. So, for example, if you want to start, for example, a new product in a new segment, something that you have never done before, you might want to have, this is my opinion based on what we are doing right now, okay? So you might want to have some UX researcher doing a specific research about that market, because it's something that you have never been, working on. So you don't know the customer. You need to understand the user behavior. You need to understand a lot of things from the user perspective, and you might want to have that particular researcher doing a specific user research, just him maybe with another people. As I said, doing different interviews, doing, I don't know, maybe some kind of not concierge, but try to spend time with the users, understanding how they behave, any kind of things, right? And then that research result is presented, for example, to in our case, to the whole research and development department. So we all try to learn what this person or these persons have been doing, and then from that moment onwards, it's not that work is handed specifically to the team. From that moment onwards is that when you start again, what are the things that we want to achieve specifically as outcomes, and then you start doing discovery specifically with those kind of things. But what we don't normally do is we don't have. I mean, I don't like to have designers to create prototypes or mockups, and that's the only thing that they're doing, because I think that's, again, that you're using not even have 50% of the capacity. We are using only 10% of the capacity. You have something very skillful or capable. So if I had a designer, I would try to put that person in every single interview. And if you have to do something more, bigger, for example, let's suppose that you're N26, a bank, and you have here, for example, you have a business in Europe mainly, and you want to go to the States or LATAM, man, you're gonna have to do a pretty deep research on understanding the consumer behaviors from the people in America, how they're spending their money, how they're buying stuff, what are the customs, that different things that you're doing, because that might be completely different to what we're doing here in Europe. So, but that becomes the input or information that you bring to the team, and depending on the outcome that you want to achieve, you might use those kind of things, bring that researcher and pairing with our team in that case, but always trying to do all the things together, because otherwise I don't want to have also one voice for the customer. If I'm the only voice of the customer, I'm doing something wrong, because in the moment that I'm not there, the engineer is going to be, what do we do? So like a different jargon and stuff. So hopefully I address the question, hopefully.
Cool. Well, I really enjoyed very much this webinar. I took lots of notes. I think I'll have to take a look at many things that you mentioned, which really, really good. And I hope that also other attendees took lots of notes. And if they didn't, remember that tomorrow or tonight you will receive an email with a replay. And if Fede sends me the link to the slides, you will also get the slides. And next week, remember, we have another one with From the Lens of Engineering, which is the third part of the trio. Okay. Thank you very much, Fede. So thank you very much. See you soon.
Thank you so much, Gerard. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.